It's going to be a bumpy night.
I don't want you to protest. I don't want you to riot. I don't want you to write to your congressman because I wouldn't know what to tell you to write. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation and the Russians and the crime in the street. All I know is that first, you've got to get mad.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet. Wait a minute, I tell you.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Welcome to the David Pollock Show.
I'm mad as hell, I'm not going to take it anymore!
Everything is awesome. Everything is cool when you're part of a team. Everything is awesome when you're living out a dream. Living out a dream.
Welcome to another exciting David Pollock Show. Man, oh man, do we have a good show for you tonight. I have so much to talk about. Again, I'm not going to have enough time. I never have enough time. I need 20 hours of radio to tell you everything that needs to happen in 8 hours. We have Super Tuesday coming up tomorrow. Super Tuesday. No, it's not where you go and get like discounts on Happy Meals or something. Super Tuesday is when all these primaries occur. For the Republicans now it's relevant because obviously there's a runoff. Well, not a runoff, a challenge between Nikki Haley and Donald Trump. But obviously it's not much of a challenge at all. Nikki Haley's won nothing except D.C. We'll talk about that in a second. But tomorrow, there's a bunch of states that are going to be voting and a bunch of delegates. Now, Trump needs like 1,200 and something delegates to become the nominee. He has 200 and something already. But after tomorrow, he'll have close to 1,000, most likely. We got Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, Virginia, and the American Samoa. Those are the states that have primaries tomorrow. It's a lot of them. Florida's got ours here, I think, in a week or two. There's a lot of primaries tomorrow and a lot of delegates at stake. So Trump will be pretty close to securing the nomination. A lot of people are pretty convinced that he's going to win basically all of them. Tomorrow, Nikki Haley did win D.C. yesterday. I'm sure you guys saw this. She won D.C. 1,800 Republicans voted, and the swamp decided they like Nikki. Surprise, surprise, surprise. So, no, nobody's really expecting anything but Trump's going to win. Nikki Haley will probably say, hey, I'm so good at losing, I'm just going to stay in. I think her money's going to dry up here eventually, especially after Super Tuesday. These court cases, I'm going to talk about these too. These court cases that I guess never Trumpers and liberals were hoping would keep Trump from becoming president. They seem to be all blowing up. I'll talk about that here in a second. And there's a lot of positive news since the last time we spoke on the draining the swamp front. Mitch McConnell stepping down. I'll talk about that here in a second. There's a lot going on. So I think we should feel good in the MAGA world that things are going well. And with that, let's get right into it. Now, real quick. Now, I know I already told you. So Haley won the D.C. primary yesterday. And, of course, she's celebrating it as a win. But in reality, it's probably the only thing she's going to win. We'll see what happens tomorrow. So anyway, I don't think really I need to talk much more about that. I don't know why Haley stays in this race. I'll probably talk more about that later with Tim Murtaugh. Tim Murtaugh is joining me today. Tim Murtaugh, former Trump Communications Director in his campaign of 2020, host of the Line Drive podcast, author of the book Swing Hard in Case You Hit It, political consultant. He is very smart when it comes to things politics, so I'm excited to talk to him here in a little bit, so don't go anywhere for that. We'll probably pick it up right after our break. So that's going to be an exciting conversation. But you know what? Let me just get right into it. I don't know if you saw today, but I don't know how you didn't see it, but that's why you're watching my show, I guess, or listening. If you're listening on the radio here locally in Orlando, 94.9 FM, The Answer. The Supreme Court ruled today unanimously, that's right, unanimously, that means all of them, even the liberal justices, that Trump is back on the ballot in Colorado. I say Chicago because Illinois was another place that tried to boot Trump from the ballot. But after today, the Supreme Court's ruling binds Illinois, Maine, and of course, Colorado, which was the first state to try to say Trump can't be president because of some insurrection clause in the 14th Amendment suggesting that he engaged in insurrection. This was argued, it has a Civil War application for people that engaged in a civil war against the government from holding offices. The Supreme Court said these states cannot decide for a federal election who's on the ballot under this. They said if they want to bar him from a state election, they can, but not a federal election. But Trump is running for president, not governor of Colorado. So Colorado has no choice but to keep Trump on the ballot. Now, Trump was, I guess keeping him off the ballot was paused while this ruling played out. Same thing with this Cook County judge in Illinois and in Maine. All of those were paused. But now Trump is back on the ballot in all of those places. So it seems that things are starting to go our way. Now, if I can figure out how to do this. So Trump spoke today about this. And let me put it up here for you real quick.
And I think it will go a long way toward bringing our country together, which our country needs. And they worked long, they worked hard, and frankly, they worked very quickly on something that will be spoken about 100 years from now and 200 years from now. Extremely important. Essentially, you cannot take somebody out of a race because an opponent would like to have it that way. And it has nothing to do with the fact that it's the leading candidate, whether it was the leading candidate or a candidate that was well down on the totem pole. You cannot take.
That's Trump talking about the case today that it came down in his favor. He also mentions Jack Smith. Now, you might have seen the Supreme Court now has taken up the immunity argument, which delays Jack Smith's prosecution. Remember, he wanted a speedy trial, not the defendant's right, of course, because who cares about the Constitution when you're trying to get Trump? The Supreme Court is going to hear the immunity case, but that's not going to be anytime soon. Fannie Willis's case is falling apart due to some affair that she forgot to tell people about and lied about. And of course, Alvin Bragg is trying to hurry up his prosecution, but he doesn't really have. He has the weakest case there is. So all of the lawfare is falling apart against Trump here. He's winning the primaries. He's going to be the nominee. They can't keep him off the ballot. Boy, is it a good day for MAGA and a bad day for communist liberals hoping to keep Trump from becoming president again. So lots to celebrate today, but don't have enough time to keep talking about this. Let's talk about Super Tuesday, which is coming up. There's a lot of cases. Like I said, you got to stay tuned. We are going to cover it tomorrow on DC After Dark. Got to go to the DCPatriot.com to watch it. You just hit watch now at DCPatriot.com, and you can see DC After Dark. You can also catch the David Pollack Show there and articles about all of this. We're going to talk about this tonight and about tomorrow, but I have to take a quick break, and when I come back, we're going to be joined by Tim Murtaugh, and we're going to be talking about Super Tuesday. So don't go anywhere. The David Pollack Show will be right back.
Hey friends, David Pollack here. If you're craving the best soft serve ice cream around, Topper's Creamery's got you covered. Serving the Apopka community for over a decade, Topper's is known for the finest old-fashioned custard-style soft-serve ice cream in a variety of flavors, from their French vanilla bean to exciting specials like German chocolate cake. But the experience doesn't end there. Be sure to grab a fresh-baked waffle cone or a sundae topped with my favorite, the fresh-baked brownies. They even offer pup cups for your four-legged friends. So hurry in to Topper's Creamery in Apopka, South 512 Hunt Club Road. Make sure to tell them David sent you.
With today's economic environment, it's never been more important to secure your hard-earned wealth for you and your family's future. FinSec Life works to offer industry-leading customer service to help successful individuals and businesses protect their wealth. Whether it's a business succession plan, estate liquidity, or a variety of life and long-term care policies, FinSec Life can help deliver peace of mind, knowing that if something happens, you or your company is taken care of. Visit finseclife.com. That's FINSEC life.com. Securities offered through Valmark Security Inc., member FINRA and SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Valmark Advisors Inc., an SEC-registered investment advisor. FinSec Life is a separate entity from Valmark Securities Inc. and Valmark Advisors Inc.
Business owners, are you sick of dealing with those big-name telecommunications companies that leave you frustrated with terrible customer service and then lock you into long-term contracts? That's why I want to introduce you to my friends over at Public Telephone Company. They are an industry-leading VoIP provider offering all-in-one business communication solutions that are completely contract-free with competitive pricing. But perhaps the best part, they're all about supporting their customers with US-based customer service, and they're always willing to go the extra mile. Don't let your phone company drive you mad. Call Public Telephone Company today at 877-314-4080 or visit them at publictelephonecompany.com. That's publictelephonecompany.com.
Joining me now on this special Super Tuesday preview is a frequent guest of the David Pollack Show, and my good friend, Tim Murtaugh. Tim Murtaugh is a Republican political consultant and founder of Line Drive Public Affairs. He's also the host of Line Drive Podcast. I've been on it. It's a great podcast. You need to check it out, and you can find that on Rumble. Tim Murtaugh, welcome to the David Pollack Show, this special pre-Super Tuesday edition.
Well, David, thank you very much. I will try to live up to that introduction.
Yeah.
So,
well, listen, you've
but
always
it's Super Tuesday. It's going to be, probably a reasonably good Tuesday.
It's going to be a
I don't
super
know.
duper Tuesday.
You
I mean,
think so? You think
well,
qualifies as super? I guess so. Depends on who you're rooting for, I guess.
Well, that's
right?
true.
I support President Trump, so I'm just joking. But
yeah, no, of course, we all know that you were Trump's 2020 communications director. You've been a good advocate for Trump. You've done great work for Trump in the campaign. So clearly, we know you're pulling for Trump. But the interesting thing is, so Haley finally got herself a win here. Looks like she's DC. I don't know how many delegates are in DC, but I think like 2,000 Republicans voted in that primary, and she's out there celebrating it. It's appropriate if she's going to win a primary. It might as well be the swamp primary, right?
I mean, yeah, if she was ever going to win one, that was the one she was going to win. I think she got something like a grand total of 1,200 and some votes. And Trump got 600 and some votes. So like less than 2,000 Republicans in the District of Columbia voted. And she's, if she's going to claim that as a victory, I mean, I guess that shows you where she's standing exactly. I think there's a lot of rush, and some people I've seen a couple of folks who are sort of in the world that I inhabit, political consultants who are trying to impress upon people that no, this really is important. And one guy I saw said that, this is the crowd. Arguably, these are the people who know Trump and his administration the best, the DC Republicans. Like, no. I mean, my God, how many of that is 1,800 Republicans who voted in that. Do you think that's all the Republicans are in DC? That's the extent of it. First, there's more than just that. It's a tiny amount of the Republicans who worked in the Trump administration or any other administration. And second, the ones who turned out to vote against Trump. This is the establishment. There could be nothing more indicative of what the DC swamp is than professional Republicans going out to vote in the DC primary. I'm a Republican. I live and work around the DC area. I certainly, in 100 years, would never actually live inside the district. I just wouldn't. I live in Virginia, so I choose Virginia, but you might also choose Maryland. Why you would choose to live in DC? That's not a political opinion. That's just a common sense opinion. So, I mean, I don't put any stock into that win. It's the swamp. It's the establishment, Republicans. I don't know what else to say about it other than that. It's not a victory, and to me, it doesn't even matter.
Well, considering it's not even safe to live in DC at this point, people being murdered, the violence, the crime is out of control. It's unrecognizable to people who were there just a few years ago. So I don't know why anybody would live in DC just based on that. But with Haley, she seems to celebrate every loss. she thinks when you come in second in a two-person race, that's coming in second, not coming in last. I have to give Nikki Haley credit for somebody who's lost so many times. She really is resilient. I mean, if I lost that many times, I would not be able to get in front of that many people and celebrate going forward. So I have to give her credit at least there, that at least she's resilient when it comes to losing and continuing to lose. And we talk about Super Tuesday coming up. I don't know. I've been looking through. I was trying to chronicle all the different contests and whatever the latest polling was. Some of these places aren't even polled really. So I'm trying to see Kaylee's chances. I'm not sure she wins any state on Super Tuesday. What do you think?
No, I don't think that she does. I mean, look, the District of Columbia primary that she just won with a grand total of 1,200 votes.
Yeah,
that's basically, the Republican. It's for people who do campaigns for a living. It's the quilted vest crowd, the political consultant crowd. When you're talking about states, then the list of states on Super Tuesday is pretty long. Alabama, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Vermont, Virginia, Alaska, and Utah. And I think American Samoa is in there too somewhere.
Yeah.
Those are states where, people who don't do DC oriented politics for a living work and live and vote and raise their families. You're going to see a whole bunch of completely different results from what we saw in DC over the weekend and the past 3 days. There's a 3-day primary also, by the way, which is just weird in itself. So I think you'll see a lot of tremendously different results in these states coming up on Super Tuesday. And I don't think any of them will match what the Republican demographics of Washington, D.C. is.
Oh yeah, for sure. And this, I didn't know there was 3 days of voting. We got 1,800 Republicans to vote in 3 whole days.
Yes, it was Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and it was all held in one hotel. And I think it was one of the first. It was either Friday or Saturday. There was a fire alarm at the hotel, which caused the entire property to have to be evacuated. And there were fire trucks in the street and everything. So it was just, I don't know what the cause of that fire alarm was, but it's kind of suspicious.
Yeah.
That Republicans are having their 3-day primary at this location, which happened to be evacuated because of a fire alarm. Just it sounded like something parallel to swatting, if you ask me, but I have no facts to back that up. But so a whole different thing. I think that you might see a different result in, say, the primary in Alabama or Arkansas than you saw in the District of Columbia.
The interesting thing is about the Super Tuesday primaries, and I was trying to go through to see how many were open versus closed primary. And for our viewers who may not know what that means, an open primary is where basically anybody who's a registered voter can pick the primary they're going to vote in, versus a closed primary where you have to vote in the primary for your party. Now, some states are open on Super Tuesday and some are closed. The interesting thing will be, and I think this myth might have got busted in South Carolina, because there was a lot of suspicion that because South Carolina was an open primary, that a lot of Democrats would show up, especially considering the low Biden turnout, that a lot of Democrats would show up and cast their vote for Haley. It didn't seem to materialize. Trump won easily in South Carolina. So I'm not sure the concern is there for Super Tuesday as far as Democrats, flipping some of these races for Haley, as some might expect. But so I don't know if the open versus closed primary is going to be as much of a factor. But you have to assume, based on past performance of Donald Trump, that it is going to be a very good day. Have you thought about whether the open versus closed primary might contribute to that, or?
Well, I don't think it's going to contribute. It's going to affect whether or not he wins. It might affect his margin by a few points. I think in South Carolina, the fact that a bunch of Democrats probably did, I don't know. I haven't seen any data that shows after the fact an analysis of how many Democrats actually voted in South Carolina, because there was a little bit different. The Democrats had their primary where Biden was on the ballot, and Democrats were encouraging people to vote in their own primary, in the Democrat primary. And you had to pick one. You can't vote in both Democrat and Republican. So a lot of Democrats did vote in their primary, which came a few weeks before the Republican primary in South Carolina. But undoubtedly, she got some help from Democrats, which contributed to her vote total, getting her to about 40%. It was kind of the same thing that she tried in New Hampshire, because you were able to switch parties leading up to, not on the day of, but leading up to the primary in New Hampshire. And a lot of Democrats did switch parties. at least several thousand. There were news reports to that effect. Several thousands did switch and become Republicans for the purpose of voting in the New Hampshire primary. So, it does affect the vote totals in some way. I don't think any of these states are anywhere near close enough for vote switchers or open primaries to have an effect on the actual winner. I mean, I think Trump is going to win. What if he won South Carolina by 20 points? That's roughly 3 touchdowns. I don't think any of these states get closer than that. I don't think, and let me say something about open primaries, since we have, I think we have a little leeway here in time to talk. We're not packed in like coming up against a commercial break or something.
Exactly.
I hate open primaries. I think they are the dumbest, worst thing possible if you're talking about how a political party gets to pick its own candidate. Why? And I'm in Virginia. I've lived in Virginia for a really long time, and we're an open primary state because we don't have party registration in Virginia. You register simply as a voter, and if you call yourself a Republican or a Democrat, I mean that's just it. You call yourself a Republican or a Democrat. You may give money to Republican or Democrat candidates. You may associate with the state party in that regard, one way or another. But as far as the state is concerned, you are simply a registered voter. And when there is a primary election, in this case, coming up on Super Tuesday, you at any time, you have to declare you can't vote in both primaries. You just have to pick one. I myself, I voted in a Democrat primary. I voted for Al Sharpton as the Democrats' candidate for president when George W. Bush was unopposed. I guess that was 2004, I want to say. So I have voted in the Democrat primaries. However, it's a dumb way for political parties to be able to select their candidates. The purpose of a political party is it's an association. It's a group of people who all believe in roughly the same thing and roughly the same ideas. They have roughly the same ideology, and they should be able to get together and decide who is their candidate to run for a particular office without fear of being interfered with by members of the opposition party, or by anyone whose interests run counter to their own party. Why on earth would we just invite other people to help us decide who our candidate is going to be? It's the dumbest idea ever. We have the right of association in this country under the First Amendment. We shouldn't just toss it away by permitting open primaries. Republicans ought to pick Republican candidates. Democrats ought to pick Democrat candidates. You don't want members of the other party coming in trying to dictate to you who your own candidate's going to be. Why would Democrats want that to be allowed either? To me, this is something that everybody in politics ought to be able to agree on. Why? What is the purpose? What is good about open primaries?
I've never understood them, to be honest with you, exactly for the reasons you've articulated. It's the party picking their nominee, the person that party wants to represent the party. Why would you let anybody else have a say? I've never understood that either. Florida, we have a closed primary, and it makes a lot of sense here. I've heard people talk about, I changed my party registration so I can vote in the other party's primary so I can choose who they get. I'm like, what? That seems like a lot of work to interfere with which candidate a party puts up. Almost like you're trying to have you don't care enough about the outcome of your political primary, so you want to have a say in who gets to be the other party's candidate. Yeah. I mean, it is crazy to me. If we're going to have a primary, that is the purpose of a primary. I'm not even sure who came up with the idea of open primaries, but it seems to me one of these things where people just don't trust voters, and they want to be able to. Yeah.
I mean, look, I think a lot of times people don't want to establish the state legislature would have to do it in all these states that still have it. And I think one party or the other doesn't like the idea of party registration because maybe they feel like they're in too distinct of a minority in the state. And so they don't want party registration because that would hinder them somehow. I don't know. But I just think it's a silly idea to just allow anybody to come barging in. Of course, Democrats they want non-citizens to be able to vote in our election. So to them, what does it matter if the other party is going to come in?
Unbelievable. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. And that's the funny thing. Democrats, I mean, I'm not even going to go down this road today, but even the way Republicans and Democrats, the way we do our convention versus their convention, the way their delegates are pledged versus our delegates, like you said, the way they want illegals to vote. It's certainly the Democrats have a system where they really don't trust their voters, and they really do want to have to sort of be able to decide who becomes the nominee, regardless of who votes for the nominee. And maybe, that's at the heart of how it trickled into open
Maybe.
primaries
I
in
don't
certain
know.
states.
The super delegates the Democrats have there, where they have
Yeah.
giant footprint in their process, and it is funny.
Yeah, it's weird.
It's
right?
funny. Years and years ago, I worked at the Republican Party of Virginia. I was the comms director there, and actually, I worked there 2 different times. But every once in a while, the phone would ring, and it would be somebody upset about the governor had done something, or something that the National Party had done, or whatever. And somebody would call and say, you can see their phone number. Hey, I live in Occoquan or someplace, and I'm a registered Republican. And I would, you have to be polite to the callers, of course, but in my mind, I'm thinking, right off, I can dismiss whatever it is you're complaining about. I can dismiss it right away because you started off by lying to me. You are not a registered Republican. I know that you're not a registered Republican because we don't have them around here. Don't tell me, don't call the state party and say that you're a registered Republican, because I think we'd know if you were or not. And it's just not possible.
When I ran for office, and I might have been involved in other campaigns, you always do when you get in conversation. People like to lie to you about what their political affiliation is. I think it's just for the sake of discussion. They're like, I'm a registered Republican and I hate everything Republicans do. I'm like, are you really registered? Let's talk about this.
Right.
It is
in this
funny.
case, we know damn well he's lying.
Yeah.
There's no such thing around these parts.
Well, and then when the candidate goes to your door, most of the time, I don't know if people notice or not, we know what your party affiliation is. We know how many elections you voted in. So lying to people usually is not a good outcome.
You can look up in Virginia, the best way to tell about if somebody actually is a real Republican is if you could look up their donation history. That's one way. But then also how many primaries have they voted in for your side? In my case, you could look it up and you'd see I voted in 1 Democrat primary, but the many Republican primaries would probably outweigh that.
I like that you say real Republican. That's important because, there are a lot of people registered Republican, but not a lot of people who act like Republicans these days. And that's a sort of the beef that a lot of MAGA conservatives have, is that, hey, the roadmap is there for you. Here are the policies that are successful. Here's what people want. I don't know why there's such a I don't know why we still have Republicans. Look, I get it. You got to represent your constituents. But if you're from one of these states where the constituency is conservative, I don't know where the whole being moderate comes from. I mean, they know what their voters want. These primaries are a perfect example of what the voters want. Voters want a return of Trump's conservative policies. They don't want this mishmashy continuing resolution passing, no debt ceiling, warmongering party that we've tried to move away from, especially in at least the MAGA movement. I like that, by the way, we're calling it MAGA now. Every time the media and the left try to say something derogatory about the movement, we always use it as a strength. Like, we were deplorables, now we're MAGA, we're super MAGA, Magadonians. Like, they can't hurt us with calling us Trump supporters. Maybe in their community it's a bad thing, but we kind of love it. It's a badge of honor, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I mean, I think MAGA was adopted. I mean, people would refer to other, somebody when I was in the administration, if there was somebody who was applying for a job, or there was somebody who was working in some other agency that was far flung and, kind of down the chain a little bit from the White House, people would say, oh, that person over there, she's really MAGA. She ought to, or that person's not very MAGA. So I've been hearing that characterization for quite some time. But look, I think for conservatives or for MAGA Republicans, I think that because the politics of MAGA really, it's much more populist really than conservative. It has lots of elements of conservatism in it, but it's also very, very populist, of course. And for so many years, conservative Republicans were asked by state parties and the National Party in particular to just accept extremely moderate candidates as the standard bearer. And we're just told, look, this is the candidate, deal with it and shut up and get in line. Like, I'm thinking of Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney was the presidential candidate, conservatives were told, just, swallow it and get in step, basically, right? But now when Trump is the standard bearer, those moderates do not seem to be following the advice that they gave us 20 years ago, or however long that was. How it seems like 20 years. It probably wasn't that long. 2012 was that 12 years ago, right? So you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Where conservatives were, before there was MAGA, conservatives were expected to fall in line and support the moderate, but the moderates somehow don't ever expect to be asked to do the same in reverse.
Oh yeah, Rush used to talk about this a lot, and I know I'm deviating from Super Tuesday, but this is a great conversation, so I want to continue it. Rush used to talk about that. He said conservatives had this fear of people criticizing them, so they would always try to like placate to Democrats and the left. They didn't want to be called names or be accused of things, so they would always kind of just bend over to be like, "Hey, okay, fine, I'll be moderate," but that never did anything except for result in conservative losses. And it seems like, and Trump, when he stormed the political world, he meant what he said, and he did what he said he was going to do. And this surprised a lot of people because, like, Republicans make promises all the time, they never keep it. Well, Trump kept it. And that's when people realized he was serious. He was serious about NATO paying their fair share. He was serious about his aggressive stance about with our enemies around the world. And he put it up. I mean, he showed people that when he said something, the wall, he was going to build that wall whether Congress approved the money or not. He was going to make Mexico keep the illegals from crossing over our border. And he did all of those things and a litany of other things that made him successful. So I think now you're right. I think Republicans are falling back on their instinctual heritage of, okay, let's be moderate again, and thinking that that's the pragmatic statesman type way of legislating. But that's not what the world we live in anymore. Republicans, at least MAGA Republicans, which is all the ones I know, they don't want that anymore. They don't want to see the compromises because the left never compromised with us when Trump was president. They want the border shut. They want the debt ceiling capped. They want budgets passed. They want to rein in the size of government and the spending. They want results. And this Republican Congress hasn't delivered results. We went through 2 speakers now. Nothing has changed. So you're right. I think instinctually you have these Republicans that keep just falling back on their instincts to be moderate while Democrats take advantage of it every step of the way, right?
Well, I mean, look, I can agree with most of what you just said. I think that House Republicans have done a lot of what they were sent to Washington to do. They have passed a ton of good, hard, strong, conservative legislation, and of course, it just goes nowhere in the Senate. And I think people have an awfully high expectation of actual success, of actually getting things accomplished and changed and signed into law, when you only control 1/2 of 1/3 of the government. It's pretty hard for any Speaker of the House to ram through the conservative or MAGA agenda when you have Chuck Schumer in charge of the Senate and Joe Biden in the White House. And I think people know that. It's not like it's a difficult concept to grasp that, you have to get through 2 other bodies. You have to get it through the Senate, and you have to get it past the president and get the president to sign it before anything that House Republicans actually becomes law. And I think people are taken out on the Speaker or on House Republicans in general when their policy positions can't get signed into law when you have a Democrat Senate and a Democrat president. I mean, to me, I think there's too much. Like, for example, H.R. 2, the border bill that House Republicans passed months ago, is by far the best border legislation that has ever even been considered in Congress, and House Republicans passed it. And of course, it's going nowhere. And when the Senate and the Democrats and Biden hammer Republicans and allegedly President Trump for having killed that awful alleged bipartisan border bill, they're pretending as if the House Republicans never even did what they did. And I don't think it helps for Republicans on our side to keep beating up House Republicans over and over. They're the only ones who are on our team in this whole picture in Washington, right? They're the only ones who are trying to push a conservative and or MAGA agenda. And so, I mean, I don't know why people choose to single them out for criticism, because to me, they're the only ones who are out there fighting, who are, in the game. They only have 1/2 of 1/3 of the government.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point and a very fair point. And there are a lot of good conservative Republicans that have been fighting. And you're right, they have passed legislation that's died in the Senate. And so I do need to be careful when speaking of generalities with House Republicans. I think, and to your point, I think the blame falls on them because they're the only group that has any power. And it seems that when the Democrats are in power, even if they have 1/2 of 1/3, when they're controlling the House and we can have the Senate and the White House, they still seem to find a way to get a lot of their agenda passed, whether it's obstructing, whether it's investigations, whether it's, not bringing bills to the table. I mean, does Speaker Johnson have the ability to just shut down the government until the Senate takes up HR2? I mean, and I think that's what people want to see. They want to see more aggressiveness coming from the House. And I think that's why people say House. And for me, that's what I mean when I say House Republicans. What I want to see is the speaker say, you know what? We're shutting this government down until you take up HR2, because we send it to your desk and we're not going to let a single migrant illegal come across this border and kill another American. I think that's what people want to see. Is that practical, or
no?
Do you think
it's not? I mean, politically, it just isn't practical, because what's the end game when the Senate and the White House say no, we're not going to do that? Then what are you going to do? What's plan B? What's your off ramp from that strategy? When they say, no, we're not going to do that, we're going to shut the government down forever. Honestly, I mean, people say that, but they're not the ones who have to actually go and cast these votes. They're not the ones who have to try to build. They're not the speaker. They don't have to try to build these coalitions. And it's easy to be a political observer and say, shut it all down, burn it all down. But that's not real life. It just isn't. And what are they going to do? Keep changing speakers? Who is the speaker? Find me the speaker who's going to be able to get Chuck Schumer to enact a conservative agenda.
No. So
I hate to be a contrarian here.
No, I like this.
I'm not going to say it's all the speaker's fault and burn it all down. These House Republicans, why can't they get the Senate and White House to go along? And if not, just shut it down. And I mean, that's not how many? Do you know how many swing seats would we risk losing in the next election? And then when we have the majority nowhere, then where would we be? I think it's been my frustration for a lot of times that people would rather win an ideological point than win elections.
But that's an important point that you're making, because, in my echo chambers, and I say that, and that's why I appreciate this conversation, because it's not simply us parroting beliefs to one another. We're having a discussion, which is important. We need to have more of these.
Here's the final thing. Yeah. You don't like Mike Johnson. You don't think Mike Johnson is sharp enough, hard enough, throwing enough elbows. Okay. How do you feel about Speaker Hakeem Jeffries? Because that's
my gosh. Well, no, that's much worse.
I mean, it's true. People, don't threaten. The Democrats will always be worse. But I mean, you're going to keep changing speakers until you get to this magical formula where you can make Schumer and Biden go along. I don't see it.
But then what's the solution then? Because
the solution is to win elections. The solution is to also have the Senate and also have the White House. That's the solution. Not to crucify the one majority that we've got. The solution is to get majorities in the other places too. Then you can actually have a real conversation and a real debate over what conservative policies are the best when you're the ones actually making decisions. Right now in Washington, Republicans don't get to make the decisions. They don't. They're outnumbered.
And I agree with you on that. But I think the thing, and again, I'm asking, and I'm curious to get your opinion on it. So you talk about, if we shut it down, then what? Keep it shut down forever? It seems like, and I'm not saying we should be more like Democrats, but it seems like that's what Democrats would do. And they would use the media the entire time to blame Republicans the entire time it's closed and say, see, these Republicans aren't willing to make deals with us. And as a result, this government is shut down. That's what they're so good at.
Yeah, you're right.
The narrative.
That's exactly what we're doing.
But that's the thing. And so should Republicans then not do? And maybe they do play chicken. Maybe they do keep it shut down forever. But I mean, with that, you're right. We could lose seats as a result. But at the same time, do you think that Chuck Schumer and Joe Biden would never blink? And if they would never blink, why do we have to? And I get it. We're in the minority. We don't control it. But at what point, who gets to determine who has to be the ones to blink? And is it just us because we're in the minority? Or just because we're in the minority, does that mean we have to fight harder? I guess that's what I hear a lot. I hear a lot of people say, again, to your point, they say, shut it down, keep it shut down forever. So be it. And I know your position is that's irresponsible, considering we need to.
I think it's irresponsible in the way that look, I think it's the speaker's job. Obviously, number one is he has to run and control the flow of legislation and do all the stuff that keeps the House of Representatives running. Second job, I would say, is to enact an agenda that is reflective of the wishes of his majority. And the third thing would be to maintain and build upon that majority. Running around threatening and actually executing a prolonged shutdown, I think, is a threat to his third responsibility, which is to maintain and grow the majority. And the reason why they're in this mess is partly because of their majority is so slim right now. And I'm afraid, doing brinksmanship politics is a threat to that very slim majority more than some other stuff might be. It's just risky politics. And if it fails, what have you got? You've got a minority in the House, a minority in the Senate, and you don't have the White House either. And then, what are you going to do? Blame the minority leader at that point?
Yeah, it's an excellent point. I guess we'll have to see. I mean, I know we all need to turn our attention towards getting Trump reelected, because once we do that, then we have 2/3 at least. And a lot of people think we'll take back the Senate. And speaking of the Senate, I'm sure you saw that Mitch McConnell, and I know you have a couple of minutes left, so I'll just get to this point. And then Mitch McConnell says he's no longer seeking leadership after November, I believe it is. He's stepping down from leadership. There's been a few names floated, some that have been around longer than others. I saw Rand Paul's name floated today. Do you think that new direction in leadership in the Senate might be the thing that delivers us the majorities we needed? A lot of people suggested that McConnell was sort of opposed to the MAGA type Senate races, and it might have actually kept us from taking the Senate, or at least taking majorities in the Senate when we thought we should have. But I don't know if that's just speculation. I'm curious to get your opinion on what you think with Mitch McConnell stepping down, if that's going to help us or hurt us come November.
Well, look, Mitch McConnell has given Republican activists in the base of the Republican Party plenty of reasons to distrust him and not like what he's been up to for a lot of the time that he's been in the Senate. He cut deals with Democrats. I think people think he goes too lightly on Democrats when they're in the White House. And I think all of that is true. And I think that is completely fair criticism. And I don't think that people think that he's been enough of a knife fighter when it comes to Democrats. And sometimes it's been conservative Republicans who have paid the price. I think all of that criticism is completely fair. I think also that when conservative activists are running down the list of their grievances against Mitch McConnell, if they're really being true to what they have seen, you have to give McConnell credit for, yes, President Trump was the president and nominated these great Supreme Court justices that gave us the conservative majority on the Supreme Court. Yes, absolutely. President Trump deserves credit for those. He selected them. He got elected. He was the one who put them on there. That is part of his enduring legacy, and it will always be for the rest of American history for as long as this country lasts. However, Mitch McConnell made those things possible. And one seat on the Supreme Court in particular, he is single-handedly responsible for keeping that seat vacant until there was a new president sworn in and allowing President Trump to fill that seat. Without Mitch McConnell doing that, which he took an awful lot of heat for in the media and from Democrats for a long time, we'd have Merrick Garland on the Supreme Court. Don't forget that. So I think Mitch McConnell's legacy is decidedly mixed, but you can't ignore the good stuff that he did. That's a benefit. That Supreme Court's going to last a generation or more. So that's pretty good. And I'm not the first to bring that up. Everybody knows that. But I just think, as you're writing his political history, Mitch McConnell did do some good things. He's not all bad. What new direction? I mean, I don't know. I have no way of knowing how to handicap who the new leader in the Senate's going to be. I think a lot of times these campaigns in states, whether it's a state Senate race or a governor's race or even a House race, they're driven, in part by local issues, but they're also driven by what's at the top, the messaging that's at the top. The 2020 election was, I hope to God, it's the only time we ever see an election like that, because it was crazy with COVID and the lockdowns and the worldwide pandemic and the media just deciding that they were going to blame a global pandemic on one guy who was from America, by the way, and not China, where the disease originated, right? So it's this one guy's fault, Trump. All of this is his fault. The media decided that. Then all of the suppression and the games that went on in the media and social media with censoring dissenting voices and the Hunter Biden laptop and everything that went on, and the law changes and changing rules for voting because of the pandemic. I hope we never see another election like that again. But all things being equal, our policies win. We should win these elections. We should. President Trump should win this coming November, just based on policy. And I think we're seeing the Democrats are going to do everything they possibly can to prevent that from happening, even down to in the interest of protecting democracy, destroying democracy by keep trying to keep your opponent off the ballot in the name of democracy, which is insane. No Democrat or any member of the media sees a contradiction in that. So, I don't know. That's a roundabout way to say, I don't know what's going to happen in the Senate, but I sure do think that winning the presidential race helps our prospects for getting a majority in the Senate.
Yeah, well, winning Super Tuesday bigly is definitely the right step in the right direction. Tim, I could have talked to you for probably another hour about all the things you just mentioned, and I do so enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, I enjoy it too.
And so, guys, make sure you go check out Line Drive Podcast. Again, you can check that out on Rumble, and this is the type of conversations you get to hear with Tim is Hogan Gidley, who worked in the Trump administration or on the Trump campaign as well. So a lot of really good insight. And what I appreciate talking to them about the most is you get insights that aren't just from our commentary side. These guys have been on the ground. They know what they're talking about. So, Tim, I appreciate this conversation so much. Is there any place you want people to come and find you on social media or on your podcast? Where can people come if they want to know more about Tim Murtaugh?
Well, I was going to mention. I was going to mention that.
It all.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. So I would encourage you to listen to and watch on Rumble and anywhere else that the audio version is found. That's Apple, Spotify, iHeart for the podcast, the Line Drive Podcast. As you said, it's me and Hogan Gidley and Sonny Joy Nelson. And I also have a book coming out. It's called Swing Hard in Case You Hit It. It is about half about campaign politics on the Trump 2020 campaign and half about my decades-long battle with alcohol, which I did manage to kick almost 9 years ago. And that's coming out on April 2nd, less than a month from now. On April 2nd, the release date. You can pre-order it right now on Amazon. You can either search for my name, Tim Murtaugh, or the title, which is Swing Hard in Case You Hit It. So I appreciate the opportunity to take that plug. And I hope your listeners aren't saying, oh my God, I am not, I swear, I am not a rhino. I am just somebody who has been involved in political campaigns for a long time, and I'm a pragmatist. It's okay to be upset if you don't think that the guys on your side are delivering, but deciding that you're going to just throw them all out, I mean, that's no way to win elections either.
Hey, listen, I think the audience appreciates your take on it because I've said this all the time. Echo chambers are only fun for a few minutes. Once you realize everyone agrees with you, you run out of things to say.
I mean, look, if you've decided that Mike Johnson is not your ally, then how many allies do you really have left?
Well, yeah, that's the truth. And honestly, we need all the allies we can get at this point.
Right.
Tim Murtaugh, thank you so much for being on the show. And we look forward to having you back real soon.
I appreciate it, David. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, guys, I'm going to take a quick break. And when we come back, I still have to talk to you guys about Super Tuesday. I had so much fun talking to Tim that I forgot about it. And we'll talk about that. And there was a big Supreme Court ruling today, a whole bunch of stuff going on. So we're going to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Dave Pollack Show will be right back.
Oh, Patriots, listen up. It's time to wake up and smell the freedom. Beard Vet Coffee is here to fuel your American spirit. This isn't just coffee. It's a battle cry in a cup. A declaration of love for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Crafted by the hands of those who've walked the walk, talked the talk, and, grown the damn beard. Vet-founded, vet-focused, and beard-operated. This is coffee with a mission, a purpose, and a testament to the unyielding American spirit. It's a tribute to the tireless resolve that courses through the veins of our great nation. This is the taste of victory, the flavor of freedom, the coffee that stands as firm as our belief in America's destiny to lead and never to kneel. Beard Vet Coffee is more than a brand. It's a legacy steeped in the principles that make America great. It's for those who stand with pride under the stars and stripes, who uphold the values that light the torch of liberty for the world to see. So, are you ready to supercharge your day the American way? Beard Vet Coffee is not just a choice. It's a declaration of independence from mediocre mornings. Bold, brave, unbound. Brewed for the American patriot. Beard Vet Coffee. Make your mornings great again.
And welcome back to the David Pollack Show. We are running out of time as always, which we like to do. That means we're action-packed and you're not missing a second. But I did want to talk about Super Tuesday. Again, there's the Super Tuesday preview, and I didn't get to talk a lot to Tim about what he thought was going to happen. I mean, look, we all know what's going to happen. Nikki Haley's probably going to lose a majority of those races tomorrow. I'm chronicling now. I haven't got it done yet, but it will be on the DC Patriot. .com as soon as I'm done with it. But what we're going to do is talk about each one of these states and territories, how many delegates they have, and what the polling shows and how their delegates are apportioned, just in case you're curious, because Super Tuesday, there's a lot of states, and Trump's probably going to win a lot of them. And now Nikki Haley, of course, is going to ride the losses, I guess, and call them a victory. It's also possible that she just uses the one victory of DC to suggest that she should be the nominee. I don't know. I haven't quite been able to figure out what Nikki Haley's plan is, because look, she's lost what, 6, 7 straight? Was it Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina? She lost Michigan, Missouri, Idaho. She hasn't won a single primary other than DC. And again, as Tim said, 1,800 Republicans or so voted in that one. It's the swamp primary that she won. I'm not sure she'll win any others. And her path is very narrow. Now, I think Trump has 246 or 200 and change delegates. He needs, I forget, it's over 1,000 to secure the nomination, 1,200 or something like that. After Super Tuesday, he will certainly be most of the way there. Barring something insane, Nikki Haley will not win the nomination. It's almost mathematically impossible after Super Tuesday unless Trump doesn't win any other primaries. But we know that that's not going to happen. He's going to continue to win. The country loves Trump. Republicans across the country, those who live in your communities, those that are your neighbors, those whose opinions actually matter, those people love Trump. Now it's your Washington, D.C. establishment, your swamp, your, basically everybody that's afraid of Trump. Those people want Nikki Haley to stay in the race, but it's a very small portion of the Republican Party. As you see, it's not enough to get over a primary. Nikki Haley has said, what has she said? She says 40%. I think this is after South Carolina. She's like 40% because she got 40% of the vote. 40% of the people don't want Donald Trump to become president. Well, 60% don't want you to become president, Nikki Haley. I mean, and here's the reality. After she's out of the way, 100% of Republicans, except for your never Trumpers, they're going to support Trump because Biden has been an absolute failure. And everybody knows this. If you're sick and tired of paying for $5 for milk, $5 for eggs, your grocery bill ridiculous through the roof, you know nothing is going to change unless we change the person in the White House. And it's not going to change fast. We had an economist on the show a couple of weeks ago that was saying, look, they might be touting that inflation numbers are slowing, but inflation is not going away. Inflation is just slowing. The fact is we're still inflated, which means you're not getting price relief. Nothing is going to change until we have deflation, which is something that is really bad for an economy, from what I understand. So what we're going to have to do is find an environment then where people are making more money. We're going to have to increase wages. People are going to have to earn more money in order to be able to afford the inflated cost of goods. And that's not going to happen under Joe Biden. Joe Biden wants to raise taxes. Donald Trump wants to create more wealth. He wants to drill domestically. He wants to produce more domestically. And as a result, better high-paying jobs will become available. Wages will go up. So people will be able to start earning more money. That's how we'll get a handle of inflation. People aren't earning more money right now. People are earning less money because when you put in inflation, people's money isn't going as far. And consider that they want to do a tax increase, which will take even more money out of your pockets. Guys, there is a consumer credit card crisis brewing. There's people who are still trying to spend at stimulus levels during the pandemic. All the stimulus money is coming. People are spending money left and right. Well, that stimulus money's gone. Inflation is set in. Wages are not going up. These are realities that voting for Joe Biden, that's what voting for Joe Biden will get you. More of that. Now, yeah, sure, we might have slowed inflation, but your economy is not getting any better. And that's the reality. And most Americans know this. Most Americans are watching what's happening at the southern border, and they're concerned. Most Americans are hearing the pain in the voices of the victims of the illegal alien crime across this country, whether it's students being murdered in Georgia, cops being attacked in New York City, the property crimes, all of the sexual assaults, even illegal alien on illegal alien crime. The people that are coming to this country, they're being released from the prisons in Central and South America, and God knows where for around the world. They're a Darien Gap, coming from Africa, coming from Asia, coming from the Middle East. There is no stopping it because our border is wide open and nobody is doing anything about it. People are frustrated. People know Trump said he was going to build a wall. Trump said he was going to stop immigration, do a mass deportation to save this country. People believe him. I believe him. That's why people are voting for Trump over Haley. Now, when Haley says that she is the better option for beating Joe Biden, the polling shows Trump beats Biden too. Now, Haley's trying to pretend she beats Biden by more. I don't believe those polls, but let's just assume for a second they're true because, we rely on the polls when we're talking about Trump winning in them, right? Does it matter how big you win by? I mean, I guess it does if there's an element of fraud. But does it matter how much you win by as long as you win? Trump beats Biden. So what's Haley's argument? She doesn't have a proven record like Trump does. She doesn't have the tendency of telling the truth. We know that she's flip-flopped on her Social Security policy, raising the age limit. She has a hard time finding the truth. She loves war. She wants to get us into more foreign wars. She'll send your troops to die. She doesn't even know why. She's just so used to doing whatever the establishment tells her to do. Americans don't want another establishment candidate. And here's another thing that Nikki Haley needs to consider. There's a lot of Democrats in all kinds of communities, whether the communities of color or just regular old communities or whatever. There's a lot of people who want Trump to be elected because they know that Trump is going to deliver. They're not going to feel so sure about Nikki Haley. And once the media, and let's just assume, now Nikki Haley's not going to be the nominee. I can promise you that. But assume she was. You don't think when the media is done with her that Joe Biden looks like a reasonable alternative? Trump is battle tested. They've indicted him 90 plus times. Look, I know there are some of you out there. I know you're out there. I know you're out there that are worried about Trump. Not just that he can beat Biden. You just don't like him. You don't like his mean tweets. You don't like his personality. You don't like the fact that he's had other marriages or whatever, the bankruptcies. There's reasons. You don't like him. Fine. But you know that Trump did a great job when he was president, and you know he's going to do a good job. Haley will not survive being attacked by the media the way they've gone after Trump. You will not have the same opinion of Nikki Haley. Haley will be damaged. I said the same thing, by the way, about Ron DeSantis. When he was running, everyone's like, oh, Ron DeSantis is just as good as Donald Trump. But he doesn't have all the baggage. And I warned you. I said, when the media gets a hand on Ron DeSantis, he's going to be just as beaten and bruised as Donald Trump. But he doesn't have the armor that Trump has. He doesn't have the battle-tested proof of success that Trump has. So you can't just sit there and say, oh, I prefer one over the other because people seem to like him more. When the media is done with anybody, they'll treat him the same. They'll be viewed the same. And sure enough, look what happened when Ron DeSantis started getting into this race. They attacked him and he became irrelevant. Irrelevant. And for some reason, they thought that he should debate Newsom. I guess it was the debate that they wish was, but it wasn't. But that being said, Trump is going to win on Super Tuesday, and he's going to win bigly. Bigly. So what we need to look at is November comes. You have a choice to make. Is it going to be more of the disastrous Joe Biden, more wars, more Russia invading foreign countries, more China threatening Taiwan, more economic policies that don't favor us, more bare shelves, more inflation, more taxes, more crime in our streets, more open borders? Or do you want more of what we had in 2016? Lower taxes, domestically produced energy, NATO paying their fair share, foreign governments respecting America, lower crime, I should say. Things were better when Donald Trump was president. The only thing that wasn't better were the things that were manufactured by the left to try to stop him. Well, guess what? You can't stop him anymore. And proof of that is the fact that he's going to win this nomination very soon and be the Republican nominee and be the next president despite what you did to him. So you might as well get behind the man and root for him to save America, because Lord knows we need saving. We're going to talk more about this on DC After Dark, coming up right after this, David Pollack Show. Go to dcpatriot.com. You click watch now. You can see this show, and you could see DC After Dark. Tonight we have Dan Ball from OANN coming on. It's going to be a great show, so make sure you go and check it out. Also, you'll find a lot of great articles about everything that we talked about today, about the Colorado Supreme, about everything we talked about, the court ruling, the Super Tuesday coming up, basically all the information you could ever want at dcpatriot.com. It's revolutionary journalism. Go check it out, dcpatriot.com. And don't forget to go follow me on Twitter at The Pollack Show. And that is all the time I have for tonight. So we will see you same time, same place next week. Thanks for listening, and thanks for watching. Good night, everybody.